Good afternoon, everybody. I'm State Senator Pat O'Connor, and I wanted to first off welcome everyone and thank everyone for being here today. I'm thrilled that we're able to gather here at this iconic port and a beautiful example here in Scituate of what the fishing industry can be in Massachusetts. I want to first congratulate all of the Lobstermen who are here with us today for making it through the 4-month-long closure this year, and congratulate them for those who were able to drop their first traps on Monday. We're here because of a very interesting sort of trail that has led us, which is actually incorporated with some of the individuals of the local media. When the Commonwealth of Massachusetts shut down industries due to the pandemic, we started very quickly to create, through our Division of Unemployment Assistance as well as the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, relief for individuals who were in industries that were shut down. And during one of the conversations that I had with Greg Durr, who's a photographer for the Patriot Ledger and I believe the Associated Press, he had said it's a shame that we can't do something like this for the lobster industry. And it really started the process of us reaching out to folks like Representative Kearney, Representative Moschino, Senator Tarr, Beth Cassoni, and local area lobstermen and women to say this is something that we should be doing. And the Massachusetts economy that the lobstering brings in equates to $640 million, which is the second largest in the entire nation. And what we're here today to ask for is a slight portion of that, $12 million of that 640 economic generation that the industry brings in, to bring back to our lobstermen and women, and to make sure that we have a system in place that if the state's going to go and ask this industry to be closed for a period of time, that the state takes care of the individuals that work in that industry. And what this would do is create a fund that would provide $1 per trap per week to every single permit holder, and that this would be retroactive to the closure that happened this past year. This is going to be filed in the budget that myself and Senator Tarr are going to be debating this upcoming week. And we hope that this is the start of bringing real momentum and real action and real change when it comes to this. You know, when the shutdown continues to increase, and I know that at first it started down, you know, from Buzzard Bay to then Nantucket Sound, Cape Cod Bay, now Cape Ann, and obviously here on the South Shore, as this continues to increase, this is becoming a much more significant problem. Not that it wasn't one before, but now it's one that impacts the entire state, and I believe something around 9,000 square miles of ocean. And if we're going to take away the livelihood of individuals to protect endangered species, we must do something for the people who depend on this. And my hope is that we can start the progress in the upcoming budget session. The maximum for some of the questions that might be out there, the maximum that a lobsterman can have is 800 active traps. So the maximum amount of money that will be given will be $800 per week. But we truly believe that with Massachusetts shattering revenue projections each and every single month, last month alone, in April, our revenue projections came in $2 billion above expectations, which means just in the month of April, the surplus for the state was $2 billion. We're asking for $12 million of that to keep an industry alive, to protect the men and women who work in it, their communities, their families, and make sure that they can continue to thrive in this environment that Massachusetts has created for them. Lobstering and lobsters in general are such a huge symbolic and key part of who we are here in Massachusetts, especially here on the South Shore, with all of the things we do in Marshfield by celebrating Lobster Fest, all of the different occasions where lobster is a key part of bringing people together. This is the very least we can do to make sure that we respect the dignity of the people who work in this profession, and that we continue to do everything we can at the state to correct some of the problems that we've created in this industry, specifically through closures. So with that, I wanted to thank you all for being here, and I would like to introduce my colleague, the state representative for the town of Scituate, Patrick Kearney.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you all for being here today. I'd like to recognize and thank the minority leader for coming down all the way from Gloucester to join us today. He's been a long supporter of the fishing industry up at the State House. As the Senator said, lobstering and commercial fishing is part of the fabric of this community. It's something that allowed me the opportunity to put myself through college, working on the back of local charter and commercial fishing boats here in Scituate and Marshfield. And I think what's important with this group here today in support of Senator O'Connor's amendment in the budget is to create a discussion that we've been having for a while, which is how do we as a state support the fishermen and the fisherwomen in our district in a way that is consistent with our investments in other areas. We have been investing tens of millions of dollars in zoning, and we've passed legislation recently in support of our efforts to create offshore wind. A lot of those wind farms are being placed in areas where we see tremendous amounts of right whales. So if we're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars in support of creating a new industry, I think it's important that we put our money where our mouth is and support the industry that's already bringing revenue to the Commonwealth. So I don't want to speak too long. I know Senator O'Connor hit the majority of the points, but we're here to support our local fishermen, and it's important that we, at the state level, set up this fund so that in their time of forced closure, that they're able to provide for their families and stay in the communities that they work and live. Senator.
Well, thank you very much, Representative, and thanks to all of you. It's great to be here with you on the South Shore, and great to be here with so many advocates for the commercial fishing industry in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Most old friends, a couple of new friends. It's great to see my old friend John Haviland here. We were talking about this is his 48th lobstering season, which is hard to believe. He started, maybe at 5 years old, I'm not sure. But it's great to be with all of you as we advocate for one of the most important industries in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Commercial fishing was one of the first industries in this state. And throughout our history, it's created a legacy of prosperity and a legacy that has been important in so many different ways. When it comes to lobstering, the lobster fleet goes out every single day when it is permitted to do so and brings back a product that goes around the world from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it signals that we can produce sustainably a good food product, a nutritious food product, and we can do that in a way that employs literally hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so when we think about that industry, we think about the fact that we have an obligation, a moral obligation and a practical obligation to support the commercial lobster industry in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now we've got a debate going on, and it's going to continue to go on, about how to best protect the right whale. And there's no doubt that we should be doing our best to protect the right whale. But we also need to protect another species, and that is commercial lobster. And we need to find ways to be able to support them through these difficult times. And we know that because of the right whale, there's been a tremendous amount of displacement. To be able to lose, or to have to lose, 4 months of income if you're a commercial lobsterman is an absolute penalty, and it would be a challenge for any business. Think about any business. We'll go down Main Street right here, and think about any business where if you said to them, you're going to have to close your doors for 4 months and not be able to earn any income, what would that do? It's destabilizing. And it's destabilizing to the commercial lobster industry, and we need to do something about it. And that's why we're very fortunate to have Senator O'Connor, who has long been a champion of commercial fishing in so many different ways, not just lobster fishing, but fin fishing and shell fishing in so many different ways, that he's come up with this idea that can advance a concept that can provide some modest amount of relief. And we're talking about, as he mentioned, out of a budget that we're going to debate next week, we're talking about a budget that's almost $50 billion. And we're talking about $12 million, $13 million, to provide a little bit of economic relief to people who work every day in the lobster industry. And I'd point out, as I mentioned, that product goes around the world, but it's also important here at home. People come to Massachusetts, they come to our seaports to be able to eat fresh lobster, to see the people that catch it, to understand the infrastructure and the industry behind it. So it's more than just one dimension, and it's a dimension that has a multiplier effect that is incredible. That's what's at stake. What's at stake is we need to make sure that folks are thinking hard and long about their future and how they're going to be able to stay in this business, know that there's a little bit of a lifeline to help them through the 4 months of closure. 4 months that is not their fault. 4 months that's imposed as a result of a whole rubric of government regulations, including the Endangered Species Act, and now most recently court involvement, forcing the hand of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and other states to have to undertake these measures. So while we think our way through this, and how we think to get to a better day, when we don't have to have closures that are this extreme, when we don't have to put people out of work for 4 months at a time, while we think about that, it is absolutely critical that we provide some relief. Again, not a lot of money, but enough to say that we need you to hang on so that we can keep this industry that is so critical to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for another day, for another year, for another generation. So that's why I'm pleased to support Patrick's amendment, and I know everyone up here is, and we're going to work our hardest to be able to take this concept and advance it to the point where it gets to the governor's desk and it becomes law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Because our obligation to this industry demands no less than that. So I'm very pleased to be here. I want to thank all of you for coming out. I want to thank everyone that's up here. And Patrick, who is coming up next? Do we have the, is it going to be Beth? Yeah. So, someone who needs no introduction in lobstering circles, and someone who is a tireless advocate for the lobster industry in Massachusetts, who is known nationwide for her advocacy and her expertise, Beth Cassoni.
Thank you, Senator Tarr. Good afternoon. My name is Beth Cassoni, and I'm the Executive Director for the Massachusetts Lobstermen's Association. Welcome to Situate Harbor, which is home to 34 commercial lobstermen who land an estimated 700,000 pounds of lobster. It's a lot of lobster. We're here today to thank Senator Tarr, Senator O'Connor, Rep. Kearney, Rep. Moschino for their tireless effort and support for the commercial lobstermen here in the Commonwealth. Without leaders like them who understand how many challenges the commercial lobstermen are faced with on a daily basis, we would not be here today to talk about Amendment 187, lobster closure mitigation. The 1,800 members of the Massachusetts Lobstermen's Association proudly support the passage of Amendment 187. We have been working closely with Senator O'Connor's staff on the language, and now we're excited to see this amendment be filed, and now we can work on making it become a reality. Today in the Commonwealth, there are an estimated 750 commercial lobstermen hailing from over 50 ports around the Commonwealth, landing over 16 million pounds of lobster with an economic impact to the economy of over $600 million, I think was stated earlier. These are real dollars being earned and made by real people supporting local economies, and we need to show that we care about them. The commercial lobstermen here in Massachusetts have been the premier leaders in right whale conservation for over 30 years. And now more than ever, these right whale conservation measures have caused economic hardships, and they cannot be recouped when the season opens up on May 16th. I have heard from several lobstermen who have lost upwards of half of their annual earnings due to these closures. Currently, the over 9,000 square miles that are closed from February 1st through May 15th to lobstering here in the Commonwealth leave the commercial lobstermen on the shore with no income. In the state and federal water closures, it is for the protection of the right whales, and now more than ever, we need to protect our commercial lobstermen. These closures on paper show a 3.5-month closure, when in reality, it is a 5-month closure. Sorry, Senator. 5 months. It takes a month on either end, a month to set your traps and a month to bring your traps home. And I don't know anyone that could financially survive after losing 5 months of income annually. The passage of Amendment 187 is a step in the right direction and a great way for the Commonwealth to say thank you to all of the commercial lobstermen here in Massachusetts for their financial sacrifices these hard-working men and women have made over the last 30 years for the right whale conservation. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I'm John Haviland, president of the South Shore Lobster Fishermen's Association. And obviously, I'd like to reiterate all the statements that our politicians and Beth Cassoni has made, and that is that due to the fact that we're trying to protect the North Atlantic right whale, the economic impact closure, the closure is an economic impact of approximately 40% of your opportunity to make a living. And it goes without saying that that is a hardship because here in Massachusetts we have one of the best policies for protecting the right whale. We're at the forefront of all the innovations that have been going on, and I would like everyone to help support this amendment and move it forward. Thank you.
Step at a time. I want to lose you now?
Thanks, everyone. By way of introduction, I'm Frank Maraki. I'm a retired fisherman. I spent most of my life, 55 years, fishing out of Situate Harbor, fishing for fish. So you might ask, why am I here today? I'm not a lobsterman. And that's a good question, and I'd like to answer it. Situate, like Green Harbor, like Gloucester, like so many communities along the Massachusetts coast, is a fishing community, and the fishing industry is more like a family than it is competing elements. We work together. I remember specifically some events in my life that stand out. The blizzard of '78, when over 50 fishermen, lobstermen, fin fishermen, everybody gathered together after the storm to secure boats, to pick up debris from the roads, to work together as a unit. I remember another event when the fishing vessel Michael Brandon was in a collision some years ago and sank. Everybody came to the town pier that night and worked all night long to salvage that boat, got it afloat, and it's still fishing today. Now we're at another epic storm moment, but this is not a meteorological storm, it's an economic storm. The lobster industry has had a real struggle. They were weakened by the October storm that came at about Halloween last fall, which damaged a lot of gear, and then before anybody was really able to recover came the month of January, when people have to begin to bring their gear in to comply with the February 1st deadline. January is a terrible time to be moving pots. You know, I spent a lot of Januaries on the ocean. It's cold, it's rough, it's icing. Situate Harbor's mouth is notorious for breaking seas, and the one thing you don't want to do is be caught stern to with a deck load of pots in a breaking sea. It takes a month to get gear back out. The pier now is covered with stacks of pots. Every day they come down with their trucks and their trailers, load more gear on the boat, but those pots don't begin to generate a cash flow until they've been in the water for about a week. So just now, the money is beginning to come back. As they begin to fish, they're faced with enormous costs that were not anticipated. $6 a gallon fuel oil, for example. Who would have thought that last fall? But here it is, $6 a gallon fuel. Fisheries are important to Situate. Presently, according to statistics generated by the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries, there were 2,900 fishing trips. That includes lobsters and finfish, which landed collectively 2 million pounds worth $4.5 million. That's a lot. But it's more than that, because if you look behind you, Front Street is festooned with restaurants, and those restaurants are finally becoming active again, you know, after 2 years of shutdown and a cold and dismal winter. They're coming back to life. They need product. Situate is an amazing town, a town that is part of the cultural heritage district of Massachusetts. It's an historic fishing port, and it's a real, genuine working waterfront. There's a lot to be said for the desirability of Situate that is generated by the fact that you can actually get locally harvested sustainable seafood, lobsters and fish, at restaurants, at retailers, that comes from the boats just down the street. So my final point is this. Food security is a growing issue. Having locally harvested seafood, I think, is an enormously important facet of food security. We cannot afford to lose this local industry, whether it's the lobster industry or the ground fish industry. We need this fish. You know, we've seen what happens when supply chains are disrupted, and it's not pretty. So our supply chain basically here is the town pier to the restaurant or to the local fish market. It's not disruptible. What's disrupting it is economic situations like these fishermen are finding themselves in today. We cannot let this happen. So I urge everybody to stand by their industry and support this legislation. I think it's very important, and I do stand behind it myself. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Joby Norton. I'm the owner of Mulaney's Fish Market right up the street here. I just wanted to say thank you to Senator O'Connor, Latar, Representative Canny, Machino, all the elected officials, I guess, who work across the aisle to come to the common good for, you know, the people of Situate, the people of Fishermen of the South Shore, Fishermen of Massachusetts. This bill will greatly help the working lobstermen. Like it's been said, you know, to not be able to get any income for a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months is unthinkable. And although it's not going to save them, it certainly will help with their truck payments, their insurances, all those staples, all those hard costs that they incur no matter whether they're fishing or not. And it's imperative on the small businessmen to be able to get help when those costs, when it's needed. And I just think it's a great idea, and I thank Patrick Canny and Pat O'Connor and everyone here for helping the industry, not just fishermen, but also for the infrastructure that we provide. It helps all the land-based businesses, the ice houses, the fish trucks, the lumpers, the fish cutters. A lot goes into the industry, and very supportive of everything you guys do for us. So thank you so much.
That concludes the speaking portion. I know that the reporters here will be all available to you after this. I did want to point out Maura Kern from the Board of Selectmen. Select Board is here, and I just wanted to thank her for her advocacy at the local level and the board's advocacy as well. So thank you everybody for coming out here today. Please tell Greg we said thank you for this idea to become the reality that it is right now, and we'll be fighting next week to make sure that we push as hard as we possibly can to put forward momentum on this amendment. Thanks everybody.